Over to the US, and the Iowa caucuses are underway. It is, of course, the first big test for Democratic contenders vying for the party nomination. Let's take you live to Iowa City. Joining us is our Sky News political reporter, Annalise Nielsen. Annalise, you're there at, the Mark Twain Elementary School. It's all happening there, of course. Take us through this process. It is a bizarre one for Australians to understand, but it all really kicks off and the challenge really gets underway in earnest in Iowa.
It absolutely does, Ash. It's really extraordinary. This is what it all comes down to, a year's worth of campaigning. It used to be dozens of candidates, and it all comes down to getting people in here, into gyms, schools just like this, and getting them to vote with their feet. I've never seen anything like it. It is similar to preferential voting in Australia, but people have to front up. So we've had one count already. The first process was a roll call to count off the total number of people. That was 246. Then everyone went into their corners. After 15 minutes, all the undecided voters found someone. And that's quite unusual, I'm told, for Democratic caucuses. But they did find their camps. However, when they totaled it up, we realised that we were 2 over. Then they counted again with individual camps, and we were 10 over. So they've had to go through, and it's interesting to see just how ad hoc a lot of it is. It comes down to the caucus chair. It's their job to discuss with each of the precinct captains who represent the candidates how to solve it. They'd all agreed that they'd count each individual camp. We found the discrepancy. 10 people had left Joe Biden and they hadn't realised. Now, why that's really crucial and why we saw some of the Joe Biden supporters get upset is because that's what they should have been doing, and the second alignment, which is happening now, not the first one, but people seem to have misunderstood. However, until people have written on the ballots that you can see in some of the vision that we've sent back, it isn't official, and so all of the caucus precinct captains as well as the chair have decided to let that number be. So Joe Biden's doing very poorly here. The only two candidates that have come through have been Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, so all those supporters can't move. What's happening now is all those other camps can move if they want to other supporters, or they can stay. And this is the first year we've seen in the Iowa caucuses. They are going to count that raw data. So there is, if you're really supportive of a candidate, enough support to really stick with them now. But a lot of them will move because they want to be backing a winner.
And Annalise, what happens to the candidates who don't have a good showing there in Iowa?
Well, it's not critical for them really in the long run. They can survive, but the saying goes that there are 3 candidates that get a ticket out of Iowa. In that, for years now, there hasn't been a serious contender that has made it to the end of the candidate process without getting in the top 3 showing in Iowa. In fact, I think the only one who did was John McCain for the Republicans. And so this is really when it separates the pretenders from the contenders. For so many of the Democratic candidates too, they haven't really been able to pull ahead in the lead. There's been 4 who've really been topping the polls, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, as well as Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg, this is really critical for him. If he doesn't get the support in Iowa, he doesn't have that support from African American voters and Hispanic voters. He's not going to get a wider state than Iowa straight out of the gate. So if he can't make his presence felt here, it's really a bad sign for him going forward. Bernie Sanders, it's his to lose, and you can see that with how he was running his campaign as well. It's all part of the lead up to the Democratic convention where they decide their candidate, but for now this is all about just deciding who the nation's going to take seriously.